Study session of March 24th, 2026 is now called to order. Mary, will you please do a roll call?
Cool. Councilmember Lush.
Here.
Councilmember Stearns asked for the Zoom info, and I don't see him. Councilmember Nisco.
Here.
Mayor Sherman. Here. Deputy Mayor Sapp. Here. Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here.
All right, now the department reports are in the packet, so if we have any questions, the city manager is available to answer them. We are going to go on to proclamation applications. City manager Mark will discuss the proclamation applications now.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As confirmed in the council's protocol manual last week, we're bringing applications for 3 proclamations to you tonight for your consideration to move to a future business meeting. The first is a sexual assault awareness proclamation that was submitted by Turning Point Survivor Advocacy Center. If you'll forgive me, I'm trying to wade through this a little bit, how you want to receive the information, how in depth you want to get on each of these. We can certainly kind of work that out today and use this as kind of the litmus test. If the proclamations are in the packet, as well as the application. So I'm just kind of reading from the applications. If you have any questions about each one, we did receive this application in advance, our 35-day advanced application process.
Last fall, I believe.
Yeah. Yes, so the second one, the child, do you want to address these one by one?
I think on these particular ones, you just said, hey, does anybody have a problem with any of these? I don't think that any of us should have a problem with any of these.
For a call, specific discussion.
Yeah, at the end of it, we can
Okay,
ask. How about that?
the second one is, National Child Abuse Prevention Month. I should have said originally, Sexual Assault Awareness Month from Turning Point. They're requesting April 7th
Okay,
agenda addition. The National Child Abuse Prevention Month is submitted by Prevent Child Abuse America, State of Washington Department of Children, Youth and Families. They're also requesting an April 7th agenda item. And then we received one more recently inside of our 30-day window for applications to be considered for our policy. And this is the birthday proclamation renewal sponsored by Cedar Stewards and Mason County Friends of Cedar High School, Capital Land Trust, Mason County Climate Justice, South Puget Sound Staff Enhancement Group, and WSA Extension, Mason County Gardeners. They also requested an April 7th agenda item. I will note that Earth Day is April 22nd, which is the day after the 21st, their council meeting. So if council so chose, we certainly add it to either the 7th or the 21st. That's an option.
All right, so I have a few questions. For the Turning Point one, do they have somebody that they would like, that they're gonna have read it? Or do they want somebody to come here to read it?
But
For the
we
first
didn't-
one?
we didn't consider those be read by
Okay,
the applicants, so the consideration was to be presented to the council for consideration. We moved through the normal process that would be read by council.
Okay.
But we do still require for the application process that somebody would be here present at the time of the meeting.
perfect, thank you. And then, yeah, I'm fine with maybe the first two of them being on the 7th, and then if we can, if it's okay with them to do Earth Day later on, because that just seems to make more sense.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Is it-
I was hoping to be.
So Earth Day
Is it
is
a
on,
month or a year? Is the Earth Day a month or,
it's a day,
day.
Earth Day.
so it's on the 22nd?
Yeah, Earth Day is the 22nd, we have a meeting on the 21st, so.
Makes sense.
Right, instead of having all three of them all bumped up against each other, space that out a little bit.
Yeah, my only question is, when is spring break, because the sponsors of the, our senior stores make kind of high school kids. Is it open, so then we can have the numbers.
Yeah, perfect, yeah, I think that's great. Good. We should all wear green. How's it flow working pretty much?
Okay, that's fine. I'm
All
just
right.
making notes.
Okay.
Great,
Awesome. Okay.
I got direction, I'm happy.
Woohoo. All right, so we are moving on. We have Jay and Aaron from Public Works up next to present information from Olympic Highway North Revitalization Project.
Survey information. Yeah, we can share it.
Yeah, that's so exciting, part of the opposite of the things also.
I should do this. If you, Brent, if you want to join the table.
Ooh, color and everything.
Shooting houses, the actual options, and things that take with that.
Same on finance.
You got, they're all on your laptop too. But
Yeah.
that way you can flip things around here, look at it.
Will there be a test at the end?
Yes, yes. For sure.
I hope.
You have to get 99% on it too.
It's multiple choice though, right?
Yeah. So the goal of the laptops was to minimize. I get it, but sometimes, especially when we're pointing around, this is a little heavier for people. Safety.
Sorry, I was like, it's fine.
I don't know, it's the- Hi, good evening, the mayor and council, Jay Harris, Aaron Mix, Assistant Public Works Director, Public Works Director. Olympic Highway North has been on our minds for some time. Mostly, what are we designing to? We're required to put in bike lanes as part of the $3.6 million grant that we got from the Transportation Improvement Board, that's TIB, and for short. And with that, we had 4 options. We obviously have the existing configuration, which is a lane in each direction, a center turn lane and parking for the majority of the road. To be able to accommodate parking, or I'm sorry, the bike lanes, we're going to have to eliminate a lane as you get all the way to the far end by Wallace Nealon. And we're gonna have to do something with the parking or narrowing lanes to get one of the 4 options to work. So we held a neighborhood meeting 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, right? And all 3 folks were there. Thank you. We had actually a pretty good turnout for that. I've been to a lot of community meetings and heard a lot of good people speaking. One thing noted at that meeting though was I didn't know a lot of business owners didn't speak. And I don't know the community well enough that were the business owners sitting there or and they didn't want to speak or they just weren't present because the parking does impact potentially the businesses. We did go down the corridor though, and every commercial business had some sort of parking, whether it was on site. Some have across the alley, like the dialysis center where they got some parking, they put it on some lots they owned over there. So there's sort of this odd mishmash of parking. Off-street parking is required by our code for commercial. We went over that and which is important, you know, for your business. We also did that in, what was it, last October, you did that parking study showing that there isn't a lot of cars that park on the street there. Our arterial standards don't say that no parking is allowed. If it's a brand new arterial, like you look at Lebanon Heights, for example, they have no on-street parking. It's for cars. It's to get from A to B, right? So some of the things that you requested out of the meeting was a safety analysis, which option perhaps is a little safer. And then also what our insurance company, the WCIA, what would they think of each option? And then obviously the results of what the community said are also printed out. So Aaron, why don't you take off from here?
Quickly, you guys, I'd like to just kind of go over the key points of the data summation. We closed off obtaining data last Wednesday. What was that was the 18th or so. So that's the results are reflective of about a week's worth of data. In essence, in total, we got about 20 folks that actually responded. There was support for the project, at least 80% to proceed and move forward with it. Some of the safety was the dominant theme that we captured by some safety, turning conflicts, traffic speed, and parking related conflicts. Another issue that was of utmost concern was the pavement condition and getting that resolved. Construction impacts were kind of a secondary concern, but there were concerns specific to business access, traffic detours, and construction timing. Lastly, about half of the respondents there picked option number 3. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. In addition, I included a 2-pager from you guys. You should have that in your packet. With regard to, you had asked about safety and safety analysis. So our consultant, as well as myself, started diving into that. And lo and behold, there is what they call a level of traffic stress at WSDOT. It was something that they've recently come up with, but it was part of the Complete Streets program that they initiated in 2021. So What this does in essence, and you have the handout in front of you, it basically identifies the level of traffic stress based on the various types of designs. And it's a way that the state can evaluate risk. WCIA insurance folks, they don't do comparisons of different types of design pieces. And you'll see this in the scoring here. So if you have a chance, take a look at this. Basically, it's a 1 through 4 system that they developed. 4 being the worst case scenario, 1 being the best case scenario. And if you look at that sheet, they actually, there's some, they talk about how you can create less stress on roads, as well as they've included a table. Like I said, it's a 1 through 4 ranking system. And if you look on the page that our consultant put together, that 2-pager that I talked to you guys about, on the bottom of the page, we've identified all of the options, including the don't do anything option, no build. And you can see how the scoring was ranked there with regard to all of the options that you guys have in front of you.
So I'm looking down at the bottom of the first page of the additional life and safety design. Oh, it's up there. There you go. Okay, good. I just want to make sure we're down at the bottom. So then the no build, we're at a 3 level of stress,
Correct.
right?
So
And then,
let me
okay,
just quickly
yeah,
finish.
sure.
Quickly.
Okay.
WSDOT, their general philosophy is they want to build 2 and below. So if you're at a 3 and a 4, the idea is they want to get you down to a 2, so that it is a more pleasurable experience for you in essence. That's how they've identified. Now, this is kind of subjective, I understand that, but this is kind of the best science now. Chris did also, I'm just gonna read what he said. I misspoke on Thursday when I said that the LTS was a WSDOT specific evaluation. That it's actually not, it's a culmination of a bunch of different types of other types of frameworks in evaluating level of stress traffic stuff for not only pedestrians and bikers as well. So I wanted to bring that information. I know we had a lot of discussion with regard to safety and the various different options, but at least what I'm seeing as far as how WSDOT identifies this, doing nothing is a worse condition than any of the other options that we have provided for you. And none of them actually exceed what we thought. They all basically fall at a 2 level, which meets the WSDOT standard. Okay. In addition, if you go to the second page, there was some discussion. Jay has this tendency, he is in love with ChatGPT. It really is.
That it really helps on a lot of things. if
So why don't you
read it.
take this? So you got, it's right there. Basically, this is a very simplified table. This is a high level summary of, basically, this was WSDOT guidance on determining the various types of designs and when they're appropriate. That's a lot based on EDT, which is your actual daily trips.
Yeah, the
average daily trip.
daily trips,
Correct.
correct.
And then you also have buffered lanes, not buffered lanes, those kinds of things.
So the daily trips through the corridor, if you look on page 1 of the handout here, 8996 was from sea to street.
Yep.
Yeah, and then 10,850 was the other. So we're
Both of
hovering
them
in the
are.
10,000 range currently, right? With a bunch of development coming into town, right?
There.
And so then you go to ChatGPT, which is up on the screen here, and
There
our
you go.
posted speed for the roadway right now is 30 miles an hour. Right? We could reduce it to 25. We'll talk about that in a minute. And so when you look at the average daily traffic, we're somewhere on the urban suburban collector right now. Okay, and so we're at 30 miles an hour. Okay, and then you can see though, we're mid-matrix heading down, this road's a major arterial, which is all the way down at the bottom, right? Don't think you're gonna see 40 miles an hour on this roadway because of all the driveway conflicts, especially with on-street parking, right? It's just not gonna
I think
happen.
we see it.
Not on average.
Not on average. The average is right hovering in the low 30s. And so that's the 85th percentile speed is in the low 30s. What that means is that there's people traveling faster, there's people traveling slower, but 85% of the people are traveling somewhere around 32 miles an hour. When it's posted at 30, that's good, that's compliance. That other 15%, you're gonna find those people almost everywhere on every roadway, right? Unfortunately, and that's where enhanced patrols, that sort of thing would come in, just try to minimize that. So we're heading down to the bottom of that chart, though, that when we're developed out, our comprehensive plan, the transportation component, which is coming to you guys for adoption, has this road as a major arterial, and no on-street parking. And, you know, we're gonna be in the 15 to 25,000 range. So we'll be somewhere in minor arterial to major arterial range there, right? So if you go there, they're calling for buffered bike lanes, separated bike lanes. Once you start getting down into the arterial stuff, this is where you want more room for the bikeways. And so that's what ChatGPT was talking about. And I would agree with that also, that today the road is busy, but it's gonna get busier. We're gonna need more room in the future. So did I do okay?
Perfect.
Okay, maybe I should ask Chat how I did. No, okay.
Guys, I don't want to then continue on. There's not, it's not volume after volume of stuff. I wanted to get something that's usable for you guys, so I really included what we think was kind of critical things. And then Chris, actually on page three, yes. He talks about some feasibility notes for the various design options. And he's focused at least on this first piece on option number 3. Because there was still discussions, the council, please understand that at the level of design we're at right now, it's very conceptual, okay? So the reality of us right now, testing is ongoing. I don't know if you knew this, but last week we had them out coring, they were taking. So we are trying to move forward with this design without all the knowledge that we need for this. And that's hard because we don't want to lead you guys down a wrong pathway at all. So I just wanted to make sure this was Chris Cavallo with Transpo. He generated this with regard to some notes that he identified, and I think they're important. Let's quickly go over them. Specifically to option number 3, there's a couple items. Specifically, the traffic signal again at Olympic Highway North and K Street. He does talk about the configuration. It can pretty much stay, we believe, mostly the way that it is, but there's going to have to be some additions, new heads, and some work associated with that. So there's some work that's going to at least have to happen in that intersection with that signal if we choose option 3, okay? Let me see. He then talks about the northbound lanes, southbound through lanes. He also does mention, while not required, a traffic evaluation is strongly recommended to confirm that adding bicycle signals does not result in an unintended operational impacts at the intersection. So I'm going to lean on you as the expert with that as far as the
Yeah, I mean,
understanding of
you know,
that.
we're at 10,000 cars a day heading to doubling in the next 20 years once the area gets developed out. And this could, at that intersection, start causing queuing, especially when the road right now is a 3-lane section. That's it, 1 lane each way and a center turn lane. The arterial standard is 5 lanes. And so the parking will go away someday and there'll be 2 lanes each way and a center turn lane, which means that a curb is going to have to move, right? And this is 20 years from now. To get the people through there, we're going to have to widen it. The bikes would complicate that more, that now you got 2 lanes each way and a center turn lane and a bike signal. It could start getting snarled at K Street potentially, and we would have to do something different with the bikes.
He then talks about as a lane shifts, and then he actually provides a diagram. There's some concern because as you're moving through the intersections, we're going to kind of have to shift the lanes, and he demonstrates that in that picture that you show that is up there. Anything you want to say about that? It's just anytime you're making turning movements or progressing, it's distracting. So straight shots are typically what you go for when you're doing those types of actions. It's distracting and dangerous, can be. So
And something we talked about over the last week with council was those turning movements on the side streets across what is potentially the 2 bicycle lanes. Especially in this instance, if you're on the right-hand side, crossing those lanes of traffic to head left, I would say south, but maybe it's left is a better option, or down on that street. You're crossing 2 bicycle lanes, potentially turn lane, northbound lane, or the lane going up, and then the turn lane again, and then your southbound lane or the lane going down. It's a pretty significant turn movement with a lot of obstacles to potentially take into account.
And moving on to item number 3, the full impacts of implementing option 3 at OHN and Wallace Nealon are not yet known, and what they're talking about are transitioning the bike lanes back to sidewalks, and that's what we're gonna have to do in that area. The existing sidewalk in this area is approximately 5.5 feet, which is not sufficient to safely accommodate both bicyclists and pedestrians. At a minimum, is anticipated that approximately 250 feet of existing sidewalk from the Fred Meyer driveway to the OHN Wallace Nealon intersection would need to be widened, provide adequate space for shared use. So another item that they identified here. Item number 4, similar to the intersection, the introduction of a cycle track must be carefully considered at OHN and C Street. At the south end of the project, an existing shared use path continues south of C Street along the west side of OHN. To minimize impacts to existing bus stops within the project area, it is preliminarily anticipated that the cycle track in option 3 would be located along the east side of Olympic Highway North, connecting the cycle track to the shared use path. Would require terminating the cycle track prior to the intersection and having bicyclists cross the intersection in a manner similar to pedestrians. So there's some movements that they're gonna have to do that, again, as you're adding more steps to this, you just it makes it less unsafe, right? Because you're making more actions. And then finally, because of the added expense, we would have to do an amendment to include additional design services. Because this involves federal funding, I will tell you, I hate federal funding. But the reality is it's there, it's a resource, it's helping our community, but I'm telling you, they are a complete nightmare. Complete nightmare. Anything else you want to say about
Yeah,
that?
I just, option 3, I think is great for when you're going along a river or maybe the Simpson Trail, you have a bike track on that, where you don't have a lot of roadway crossings and driveways and all the elements of a very urbanized street. And I mean, you're seeing that with other people that do these type of designs, they do get pretty complicated with the 2-way bike track. But if you're a little more rural or more park-like, they tend to work a lot better because this is not as many conflicts. Usually you have a street every once in a while, and then you're competing with pedestrians. Usually it's a shared path type of thing, and you see the dual lane bike track there to take people off. So I mean, so what Chris is saying is obviously there's more expense to design it.
Right.
There is more expense for construction, which is unknown at this point completely. And so option 3, and this is just staff speaking, is probably one of the lower rated options, although the community likes it and they like the idea because of the expense and potential of affecting traffic long-term, with an additional turning movement at a signal, and we don't, unfortunately, we don't have budget. This project, we're trying to do a pavement restoration project, not a bike signal traffic improvement project. The bike lanes were added later, right? So in the forethought of things, if the bike track would have been on board and we would have designed it, budgeted for it and had the money, most importantly, maybe things would be a little different. But, you know, we're back here sitting at looking at the different options. So cost is a definite factor in this.
He did also talk about a little bit about option four, although it will provide a more comfortable facility, there's about 8 feet of unused space that we don't have a use for under that design, meaning that was the eliminating the parkings on both sides and putting the bikes on both sides. We would have additional 8 feet, and that not necessarily is ideally what we want to use for that corridor, just because it's so urbanized. We got all that space. So we'll have 8 feet of something that we can use in essence.
And today, it's excess space, but down the road, that excess space will be used to get capacity through here.
Right.
I mean, that space is utilized, it will be striped off, is what he's trying to say here. And because option 4 didn't have any parking on the roadway, and it bites the bullet now, says this is an arterial. We are looking for the future here. An important thing that we talked about this morning about option 4 also is without cars parked there, if I'm sitting in a driveway, I'm looking at a bike lane, you know, to my left, and then there's a bike lane on the other side too, right? You're gonna be able to see down the corridor. And it'll allow probably better capacity. I mean, you don't have bikes zipping by every single second, right? So, but you do have cars that are obstructing your view somewhat. You have cars that are moving, they're pulling in and out, which causes issues when you're at these smaller intersections trying to get out. The other thing is, it's called the double gap intercept, and I learned this about 15 years ago. It's when you look to the left and you want to take a left and there's nobody coming, but there's a lot of people coming from the right. You can go into the center median, the turn lane, and wait. And so at least you get out and you clear the one direction of traffic, then you wait for the traffic on, you know, coming the other way, and then you pull out and maneuver. So it's called the double gap intercept. No on-street parking does help with that too, because it does clear the corridor so you could see a lot better.
And that's what I had. That's basically.
Guys, if you don't mind addressing the bulb outs at the intersections, and that's really what's kind of driving some of the decisions here too, because based on the layout, we'll determine where the bump outs and bulb outs need to occur for pedestrian crossings.
And the lane shifting shifts that a little.
Correct.
Yeah, so the way that works is that at the intersection, we're trying to reduce the length of pedestrian crossings. And so when you look at each option, so if you look at option 1, if you get the little diagram there, you might want to pull, it's in the folder, someone wants to pull that up. Hold on, we're just gonna bring it up here. You can,
This share, you go to a new share, we can do it. We have the technology. We just don't have
Council, on the sheet that I gave you, that is option 4 down there. If that's one, so that. Right here.
oh, got it, okay.
That's an example of it. Part of the issues that at least our consultant has seen, and I think, I don't know if I've seen this or not in that configuration, is that oftentimes people will say, screw the bike lane, I'm just gonna park there anyways. And that can be a problem, obviously. That's a code or a police thing that, you know, get them engaged on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so when you consider walking links, when you're crossing the roadway, you know, at a sub road or anything, option 1, you can extend the bulb out to the edge of the parked car. So now I'm crossing a bike lane, a travel lane, a center lane, another travel lane, and another bike lane, and then I get onto the ramp right at the edge of the parked car. So as we did in the analysis earlier, that's probably one of the shortest crossing options. If you go to option 2, that you can see here where we eliminated parking on one side, the bulb out can't be in the bike lane, although they had an alternate where you can cross the bike lane, stand there and watch for traffic and then cross. that would be similar to option one, and we could look at something like that. But, so on the left up there, the bulb out goes all the way past the parked car. And then, you walk across pretty much the entire roadway, including the bike lane on the other side. When you go to option three, you, have the parked car on one side, so the bulb out goes there. And so it's very similar to option two. You still got to cross both bike lanes at one time or another. It's just which side. One thing about crossing bike lanes is they're not like crossing a travel lane. The travel lanes are going to be extremely busy, right, depending on the time of day. And it's hopeful that the bike lanes in the future are busy too, but you know, it isn't something you look down the corridor both ways and you might see a bike coming way down there or something, right? So you can walk out and watch for cars and that sort of thing. And then the last option, option four, is we have a bike lane on both sides. It is, except for the striping, we can pull out. So we want to move the bike lanes to traffic as much as we can with still giving a buffer to the through traffic. But the bulb outs would extend to the edge of the cross hatching for each bike lane. So they do extend out a ways, so you can stand out there and look for bikes, look for cars, and then cross.
I do have the map here, you guys, and it shows the various intersections with the treatments, because it actually has the crossing sign on there, and we're basically going every other one. If you take a look at that's the map that I had out. So.
Yeah, because we can't put flashing beacons
On every
at
single
every
one.
single intersection.
Right.
So we looked at all this staff. Option one is the easiest to maintain, probably the cheapest to construct. But there are, even though WashDOT doesn't say there's issues with the bike rider, there's doors opening and things like that. On-street parking will increase over time, right? It's not being used right now, but over time, when you get new people moving in, that on-street parking will get used more and more and more, which can increase those conflicts a little bit. You know, the driving lanes did get reduced, the center turn lane got reduced, so we're sort of trying to scrunch it all in there, right? The lease from staff's perspective, the dual lane bike track, option three is the most expensive, the most problematic to get designed and get built, get it in, and the most expensive to maintain also.
Ask what zone that's in.
That corridor is all general
Commercial, but my thought is redevelopment, so there are a few options there. Maybe the trailer park goes away one day. It's developed, is that required to have parking? General
Yeah,
commercial is.
that's a legal non-conforming use right now. So anything that it fronts on Olympic Highway North at this point is in our general commercial zone. It does require on-site parking and depends on the use. So if there's a traffic analysis done, just like Jay talked about the dialysis center.
Yeah.
They couldn't fit the parking all on their site, so they actually bought a parcel across the alley and they created parking back there to meet their parking requirements. So that, you know, potentially there are some parcels broken up there, but typically when you start seeing the major development, they will buy parcels at a time to meet their development needs.
The only other comment you guys that I got based on everything that you saw from the open house was I received one comment early on from Susie. She was very concerned about not having parking out in front of her business. So I'm just being honest and letting you know the comments that I've received. I'm really surprised that they didn't speak more to parking issue at the meeting, because if indeed that was the most critical, then it didn't come across that way.
So option two, the cost for option two, since we're moving lanes around, it's likely we're doing more grinding and inlaying. So the grant application was to grind and inlay the travel lanes. The center turn lane was going to be, and the two parking lanes were going to be sealed, crack sealant and then fog sealed, because they weren't gonna have a high volume of traffic, whether it's bikes or parking or anything of that nature. So if you could see in option two, the road gets moved over and it's actually gonna be, towards the right there, we're gonna have to grind and inlay more roadway with that, with our current grant funds. Is there budget available? We don't know until we get into the design, all
Right.
that.
And then, and the geotechnical analysis, you
And
guys,
we're
what
doing
we,
that, yeah.
what we learned was that the subbase, the old Highway 101, when they crushed it, they did a great job of it, and it's solid, meaning it's solid. So it could work out again until we have all the testing. I can't tell you which direction. It could be we dig out the wheel ruts, the 2 inches of the wheel ruts, refill those with asphalt, and then overlay the whole thing. Potentially, I'm not saying that that is going to happen here, but early indications of those deflectometer tests suggest that it's a pretty good base that we're dealing with. So
Do we still think that's gonna be a heavy road? Most of our development seems like next 10 or 15 years, it's gonna be on the other side of town. On if it Paul's Equity, Olympic Heights, if all that gets developed out there, the port. So like a lot of the development's gonna be on that side of town, and they're gonna be hopping on the freeway there, Wallace.
Hmm.
Do we think that might be a heavy road?
Yeah, I think it'll continue.
I got nods.
Progressing to be an arterial, yeah.
Lake Boulevard, University, Plat, Coffee Creek.
Okay.
But I think with the commercial orientation, commercial underlying commercial zoning. That leads to more traffic impacts than residential uses do.
I will tell you, that I've been advocating because I sit on the PRTPO, which is our Olympic Region Transportation Group. I've been advocating to get Olympic Highway North and Wallace Nealon fixed, and I am hearing some noise that the state may be starting to move on that. So the idea of just having a collective new corridor is thrilling to me. I mean, it just excites me. So I'm just saying that is a big deal, could be a big deal for us.
We're able to move that money over from the roundabout over there?
No,
I think
in fact, yeah.
Representative Griffey has committed to coordinate a meeting with WashDOT so we can have that discussion across the table.
we still have the money on our side.
We still have the money, so we're gonna have to make some decisions on whether we put that in design work.
Right.
At the Wallace Spring Road intersection, or it gets moved over to Olympic Highway North and Wallace. But if WashDOT's gonna take that on anytime soon, I assume they do it, we keep that money for design
Right.
at Spring and Wallace.
Mark, I did get an update today. We did meet
Oh.
local programs today.
News.
What did they say?
300,000 in design is
Right.
currently available.
In
And
the
then
2025,
20
2027 budget, they still have about 3 million in the 2027 to 2029 budget for that intersection.
starting in July of 27, which is a little more than a year out. There's some significant funding.
I think it was 2.8 million,
Two
something
point
like
eight
that.
plus the 300, we're about 3.1 million from the state for that. Probably not enough to build it, especially when you're looking at 2 years out, probably, 2.5 years out. But it's significant. You're well on your way to building that roundabout.
We still need a double though. That Schultz Springs and Brockdale there. Brockdale.
I think the preliminary indications were it would be a double lane, right? Brent?
It was,
Yeah.
Get
they
it
were
to
gonna
be a
design it
two-back.
to a single, but have the ability to add an extra lane and turn it into a double.
Well, that's the roundabout itself, the two intersections, because it's backed up of Brockdale. And it's also backed up
Yeah,
on Schultz
we'll need
Springs.
another lane.
Yeah, so,
Oh, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
there's been no funding for the Johns Prairie, Brockdale, 13, all the Sneeland intersection.
is that considered a collective road?
So that's our presentation, option one, option four, or sort of the better ones. Option one has some safety issues. Option four has obviously no parking and there's more striping in the interim period that we need to maintain. So
I wished we could make this decision easier, but no, and I'm serious, you guys. The reality is that these projects take a time you got to get all the information, and if we did do this, if we're gonna do this again, I would strongly encourage that we try to identify the project before we get the grant money. So that then we can make sure that we have community buy-off and move that direction as opposed to on the 11th hour after we've already not spent the money, we gotta make a decision in
Correct.
essence.
Correct. So I mean, with that, when we applied for the grant, we didn't even, we knew we got it. Well, they called us and said, you will get the 3.6 million if you put bike lanes on the roadways, right? So we found out the day we were receiving it. And so that's unfortunate that that came about.
I think we can make it easy, or by probably just realizing that option 3 is out. I mean,
I'm the biggest proponent for 3.
I was too,
I think it's the prudent decision to take it off the list. Despite popularity, despite what I want,
I know.
what's good for the city is we choose another option.
I think something we are all going to have to just accept is no matter which option we choose, somebody will be met. So we're just gonna have to bite the bullet and.
We want to try to help you guys with that. Ultimately, when we do have a decision, your plan, right, Jay, is to go out and let folks know this is the direction we've
Yeah.
been given.
We'll send out a mailer to who we think is going to be affected, the business owners, probably some people that live within a couple 100 feet of the roadway. And anyways, send out what the decision was. So if there's any additional input back to us or you, we'll hear about it. Because once we get under design, I can't really go backwards. And then especially once it's done and the road's striped, I mean, we can't, I mean, we need to move forward, obviously.
I don't like people have cars parking beyond the bikes. I just don't like that. I don't like 1, I don't like 2, for that reason. 3's out. 4 is the most unpopular probably with the community, but.
Well, no, we had one comment from somebody, unless you guys have heard from others. That was the only person I've heard about parking along there. I've heard from staff internally, you're never gonna get that. People are gonna want their parking, so.
I mean, and 4 also, this is arterial road and it's out against our code to even have parking there to begin with, so. I mean, gosh, it's just the safest one. I mean, the 3's out, it's the safest one.
I think when we're talking about, as we develop into the future, we're going to have more people using that parking, and that's problematic, really.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to remove the parking barriers down the road when we realize we need extra lanes or we need to make other changes, than if we take it now when some people are using it, I use it. But there's other options and it's not as busy. It's easier to get rid of it now and go with an option 4 than to keep it a little bit longer until it's really popular. Ideally, hopefully we'll have enough traffic over there that it's really hard to remove in the future. So if we just cut it out now.
And to go along with that, playing your car door open on the road right there probably isn't safe as it is. Probably have been lucky up to this point.
For the same reasons I'm leaning towards option 4 as well.
And the wider lanes.
Yeah, right.
For the long-term benefit of the city, I think 4 is the best option. But we're just gonna have to not like it for a second, and then when we grow into it, we're gonna love it. So.
I do.
We know the development's coming. So let's do this now and not worry about whether it's gonna be major arterial or not. Let's make it safe now. And we'll have to accept some people who are angry about it.
I do think with bikes, though, you gotta reduce the speed to 25. Driveways, people pulling out. Espresso stands, I could do.
There's a lot of driveways, we were talking about that, and a lot of traffic coming in and out. 2 things we talked about is the potential to do some different striping with number 4 as well, because you have some room to play with and you could widen the buffer between the traffic and the bike lanes as well, potentially. You'll see there's a 4-foot, buffer against the curve
Right.
of the bike lane, and then a 2-foot buffer between the traffic. There's potential to widen that and move the bikes a little further away. we also have the ability down the road to address some stormwater improvements.
Yep.
Potential funding, and add some,
Green,
you know.
green, we could add some green too.
Add
if we
some
wanted
trees,
to.
add some infiltration galleries along those curb lines to assist with our stormwater mitigation in those areas. And when you've got some room to play with, I'll put that in quotes right now. That certainly can be done without impacting some traffic or some parking in the future.
I think if we want great bike lanes, let's put it on the crosstown trail. And make sure that we have that at least. So let's keep that in mind as we go forward on the crosstown trail. We sacrificed uptown to get downtown. It's nice bicycle lanes. So let's think about that in the future. Okay.
Appreciate it, council. I do. I know this is hard, but this is what we gotta do.
Appreciate you bringing us all the information too. Absolutely. It's a lot of work.
And I will say Councilmember Stearns is having trouble logging in. She is watching via YouTube, so I can follow up with her as well and see if she has any questions, any further comments. If there's any other information you need, we can still come back. But what I'm hearing tonight is we can let the contractor know, the designer, that 4 is our preferred option at this point. They can start working on that. We can develop some public outreach to further information, to further inform our public on for sure where this project what it'll look like here in the next year and a half or so.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, so. Are now
This is easier.
on the agenda, Jay and Brent will present information for the 2026 engineering design and construction manual update. Oh, yay, paper.
So council, I have Brent Armstrong here, Assistant Public Works Director. 2023 was when we updated the engineering design standards manual. The main focus was the definitions and such in chapter 1 and the administrative procedures. And then chapter 2, transportation, had a big change. Remember the infill lots, the sidewalks to nowhere, all of that got implemented in chapter 1 and chapter 2. It's been a back burner project. Unfortunately, we've been really busy to get the design standards done, the next version of the rest of the chapters. So that's why you're here this evening. The current standards say that we can adopt real minor changes with the city manager's approval. And if they're not over 30%, if it doesn't increase the cost by 30%. So in the admin section of the current standards, it allows us to do some things internally with his approval. Then it also has a process. If you ever question one of those, that we'd come and staff would give you a presentation on any item at any time. What we're talking about here with these changes, I don't know if many of them are at the 30% level, but there are so many changes being made that we wanted to make sure you were involved, right? So you understand why we did various items here. So we'll jump into it, and I'll try to go fast here as much as I can. So chapter 1, we wanted to add a couple, like the Department of Health System Design Manual and the public.
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah, sure.
Just to clarify, this is the change log, so this isn't the entirety of the construction standards, so these are the changes that are being.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, did you?
These are the major changes that are being done. There's one word changes and all typos and paragraphs that need to be reformatted and all sorts of stuff. So the manual we were basing everything on is from the 70s, 80s, 90s, right? And you go to the standards directory, this manual's been around for a long time. So like we're changing the font, for example, because it had a really old font in there, that sort of thing. But these are the ones that are decision-making type of processes, changes that could affect the developer a little bit here and there. And so we just wanted to make sure you knew about our navigating and we're okay with some of these, and then answer any questions. Because somebody could come to you asking you some questions and you might be able to give them an answer, or send them to us too, right? But typically, if they're talking to you, they don't like what they heard from us, right? And there's the whys. So that's why we want to explain the whys right now. So we added a couple of additional manuals that want people to follow. Yeah, Brent.
It's the track changes packet,
No, this is it.
just in the packet.
This is the
Sorry.
track change log. In the packet, there's the actual changes that are blue and red and strikeout and all that. And rather than printing all those out, we just wanted to go through the highlights here this evening. And then when we get the manual formatted and everything's clean looking and all that, we'll bring it back for you guys to look at again and go over a couple last things that we did, that sort of stuff. So anyways, added some additional manuals that apply. We added precedent of documents. So when you have a whole bunch of manuals that apply, whether it's the water system or street system, there's a lot of design documents laying out there. And then we say what order of precedence they're in case one manual conflicts another manual, we have an order of precedence in there, which is really important. Infill development, we wanted to make sure we talked about what the definition of an infill lot actually is. Is the structure occupiable or is it just a garage? So if I have a garage there and no house, does infill apply to me or not? So these are just minor filters to that whole matrix that we got worked out, which actually, you guys, is working really good. Brent actually is sort of the day-to-day guy. And the only thing we sort of ran into problems with is paving in front of your house, the paved parking. That's, you're getting out of your car, it's not gravel over there anymore, it's paved. And so sometimes the road is gravel, and putting pavement in front of your house doesn't make sense when you're already on a gravel road. So that's one of the things that Brent is advising that we take out. If the road's gravel, you're gonna have gravel parking, but if it's paved, pave in front of the house, because that's where you park on your infill lot. Design modification requests, we put a process in there. So if it's not in the manual or you want to change something in the manual, we have a process. It speaks a little better to that. Spoke about things that aren't in the manual, that, you know, you can add new details. We had a disclaimer about accuracy of city maps. A lot of those are GIS mapping. It's not super accurate locationally yet. It's getting quite a bit better, and we just want to make sure there's a disclaimer there. Pre-submission conference meetings are really important. That's where we meet with the developer and their design team to go over sewer, water, storms, streets, planning, densities, lot sizes, all of that stuff. And so that's a very important meeting to get people on track to that. So they just don't submit something hoping it's right. We go over all the items with the applicant. Any questions so far?
And we're still charging for that still, right?
We are.
So we talked a while back about maybe not charging for that, and people would come in more often and do the right thing rather than do the wrong thing and get caught.
Yeah, there's, you know, you have the.
It's a minor
Cook-
charge for what
Oh.
you get, 'cause it's all apartments, including fire that comes in and building. And by no means do we recover all the cost
No, I
that
understand.
goes into it, but
You got
it's,
people that would rather.
it does.
They'd rather not do it. You're exactly right. Some cities have adopted standards that at a certain development level, that require you to pre-sub it. Usually it's somebody trying to save the $250. And I'll tell you what, 99% of the time, they're spending that.
Yeah.
Right, because they haven't done that due
And that's what I'm
diligence.
saying.
Yeah, absolutely right. The issue is too, if there isn't a fee or a charge with it. It's hard to get a good application, because there's an application for the pre-sub and good information from somebody, because they're not really not invested in it at that point. So we want to encourage people to invest in that information they give to us. That way we can give them as much valuable information as that will get them down the road and move them forward. And there's a couple ways to do it. There certainly are for like affordable housing projects and things like that. There's the ability to waive those. I think we're at $250 for a pre-sub application for conference right now.
I thought we were at 100, so I was off a little bit there. We'd have to pull up the master fee schedule and look, but I mean, this is very valuable and I mean, I worked for other cities where it's required, right? Because the applicant finds tremendous value and staff finds tremendous value. The other thing is if there's a parcel, let's say it's 5 acres and 5 guys are looking at it, you know, we prepare the information once, you know, and then can go over it with the different people that are trying to buy it and that sort of
We're
thing.
not making it mandatory.
It's not mandatory today.
And I'll give you a perfect example. Right now, we're dealing with the tenant improvement at the hospital, and they did not go through a pre-submission conference. We had contract billing official services. That service probably, you know, didn't put as much effort into it as we would have hoped if we had in-house services. And now there's a little bit of conflict with this because there was an agreement, or there was an agreement, I guess, on how the project would proceed on the inspection, temporary occupancy into things. It's kind of contrary to how we would normally proceed. So right now we're working it out, but it's something that could certainly be handled up front in that conference, in that pre-submission conference, and it could have saved the 12 people on this email chain a heck of a lot of time if that was done up front. So there's benefits, certainly benefits on both sides, and there's different ways of doing that. Whether we're going to recover any costs at all or none at all, but that's I don't know, not philosophical question. It's a business decision for me.
Yeah, so council will have the opportunity though to talk about it more with the comprehensive plan update. We're going to be into a lot of chapters and making a change like that in our development code is really not a big deal. It's a big deal, I think, for the future of the city and getting everybody on the same track. And then cite what level the pre-sub would be required at. I'm assuming there's some things like maybe a tenant improvement or something where you might not have a pre-sub for a small tenant improvement or something.
Residentials, you know,
Okay.
tenant improvement, residential work typically, you know, but if it's a homeowner that wants to take on, bite off a project in their house and really doesn't have much construction experience, it could really save them a lot of money too. You know, we
Yeah.
try to advise people to take advantage of that, but they don't have to at any point.
It'd be like
A lot of
building
people,
a deck on the
Yeah.
back porch or replacing a deck.
Yeah.
but a lot of people that come to us are doing their due diligence on buying a property so they can find out what the actual true cost of the improvements that they're gonna have to put in is. Along with our GSEs, because they don't write, so it's like doing their. But then also, when they pre-sub with us, we get a much better application with all the things we need to process it quicker and get it done.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense. Kind of like our Harvard properties that we want to give away, is they gotta run the special water lines around, it's gonna cost too much to do that. So,
That can be vetted out in the pre-submission conference before you buy the property,
Yeah.
right? Or before you come to the development phase.
Yeah.
You know, either one or potentially both.
right before you buy it.
So this 1.065, so if you go to the development review or pre-submission conference, it will give you a list, a checklist of what we're expecting when you submit your application, which is very good. We have that in our manual now, which is good. That way, hopefully you can make that submittal the first time and not having to keep giving us stuff, right, to make it complete. We also organize how we want to see plan sets. Water sheets in front of the sewer sheet, in front of the storm. And the reason why is this is 30 years from now, who's using those plan sets? The developer's gone, the road's built, the houses are there, our maintenance guys are. And it's nice if they're all sort of in the same order. So when you're flipping around, you're finding the same things in the plan sets. And so it doesn't increase the cost to the developer's engineer. It helps us significantly in the future though. And then in plan review, we have some people that come in for plan review, for engineering civil plan review. and, or this could be erosion permit or whatever, and then we never hear from them again. And so we had nowhere that said, when does that, when you submit something and pay your fees to me, and then I never hear from you again, it has to expire. So we put 6 months in there, which is pretty standard for building permits too. So that 180 days was put in there. We have safety requirements. We can walk out onto a job site that is L&I or OSHA appears to be in significant violation. This could be people down in trenches that are over a certain depth with no shoring, no hard hats, those sort of thing. So we put that in there to just say, hey, we can come out and look at it, and if we feel it's egregious enough, we might have you get off the equipment and stop. And then if you want to continue to argue, that could be an issue with L&I or others. We don't want any trench accidents or any construction accidents in the city, especially as we're building a lot of different things with private developers and private contractors. We really need to make sure those people are safe too, right? And we're out there, we're not out there all the time, but we're out there enough. And our people know when it's not safe, right? So anyways, and then plan review fees, that if you get through a review or you're partway through a review and you just decide to pull the plug, those reviews fees are non-refundable. If you paid general facilities charges, traffic impact fees, that sort of thing, and never added any units, right? Those are creditable back because you never added any units. But if we're in and we're, 3/4 of the way through the plan review and then we never hear from you again, the review fee is non-refundable. And then we updated a building permits section about our policy and procedures about building permits. Just so you know that public improvements, that's the water, sewer, streets for like Olympic Heights, it needs to be built and approved before the final plat can record, unless you bond for those improvements, where you have a physical bond assuring that those improvements will be put in, okay? That's including electrical, cable, phone, street lights, the whole bit, sidewalks, street trees, all of that. The reason is, and this is part of RCW, that if my plat records, I can sell any one of you one of those lots the next day, right? But if all the improvements aren't completed yet, the developers can skip town, right? So RCW says you have to assure for that, okay? So we tried to clean up that section so it was pretty clear. We want people to record the plat early, like Olympic Heights said they're coming in, they want to get the plat recorded so they can get addresses, because then it goes to the county and we can assign addresses and you can submit for building permits. Even though they're not done with all the public improvements, we still hold a bond, which is typically 1 to 1.5% is what an insurance company would charge you of whatever the cost of the improvements you're putting in. So you can get a surety on it. So that will guarantee that those improvements will be done in the future. So maintenance access requirements for public utilities. We have sites like Coffee Creek where they have sewer going down a pedestrian pathway back behind lots through an open space and that sort of thing. We can have a water quality facility that we need to get to an inlet or an outlet, and with the Vector truck per se. So we put some standards in there about like a 12-foot wide roadway that the Vector truck can go down with 40-foot radius curves, which are actually pretty sharp, and then a turnaround at the end so we can turn around and get the truck back out. And if it's not a Vector truck, at a minimum, we would have just a small design vehicle like a pickup or something. Sometimes needs to get into an area to perform some maintenance, especially like cleaning sewers or a storm drain. We get buildup in those. We got to get to the manholes. We don't have to get to every manhole, but we need to get to at least half or more in these areas to keep the system from clogging up. So access road was out the bottom there. So transportation, so we added some a section about pedestrian and bicycle information about safety and some striping details and that sort of thing. We added some new information about vertical curve criteria. So that's when you go, and this is called a sag curve, where you go down and hit it, and you go back up the other way, right? That you can't make those a roller coaster ride. It's based on speed and gradients and all that. So we worked on the vertical curve some, and a crest curve. When you're going over the top, you have to be able to see that person running across the road or a car stalled right on the other side of the hill. So there's a lot of criteria there. Same thing with horizontal curves, baking, which is a super elevated curve, which you don't see a lot of in local roads. You'll see that more on arterials, where you're banking cars. You can reduce the radius to make so the cars feel more comfortable. Because I don't know if you've ever gone around a curve and you're like this, but the curve's going to the right, but your car is like, you're not very comfortable with something like that. Curb radiuses. So what that is at intersections, if you have large trucks, you've got to be able to make that turn without driving over the handicap ramp. So as like Olympic Highway North is a arterial roadway, those are local roads that hit it. Those curb returns are a little larger for the U-Hauls and that sort of thing. Now, semi isn't going to make that corner, but when you go up to Wallace Nealand, that's like a 35-foot radius. So the larger trucks can go around them and you won't drive over the ADA ramp where there's someone standing there, right? So those were important. They were real good to begin with. We just did some minor updates to these tables. Brent, do you have anything?
Not on this
I
section.
know I'm talking too much. Subsurface drainage of roadways, that's when you have a lot of water in the hill and you're building in a slope with springs in there, right? We need to collect that water and get rid of it and get it down to discharge points rather than it laying under the pavement, which isn't good. You don't want water under your pavement section because your road deteriorates very quickly. The other problem is water can get in the sewer trench, water trench, stormwater trench, because we got gravel in those, then it conveys downwards, right? It goes down the steep hill and it can come out near in anywhere. So we have some subsurface stuff that we're working on to, if the geotechnical report has high groundwater, we're gonna have you put in some dewatering devices and that sort of thing. Resurfacing requirement. So that's when we are putting in a sewer line going down a road like Olympic Highway North is a great example where the pavement's like segmented. It's just like Rice Krispie treats. There's nothing to tie into. So you saw cut out your trench line into stuff that says cobble, right? This says, hey, in your design, you need to evaluate this engineer. You might be paving a little wider to get back out of a travel lane into the shoulder a little bit. So we can, when you're paving it back, the road's in better condition at that point. The intersection bulb outs, we didn't have a whole lot in there. We added that in and anyways, planter strip, sidewalk info. What that was on sidewalks is when you go from a planter strip to a curb tight sidewalk, it happens quite often. It's curb tight existing, but our new standards has a planter strip with street trees in it. You need to get it back in. And sometimes you see people that, Z it in with very sharp, angle points. We actually have smooth curves that take it back in there again. Driveway sections, we talked about grade elevation. How steep is a residential driveway? We also are talking about reducing the standard for residential driveways. Right now, all of our driveways are the same. They're more of a commercial driveway. They got rebar and such in them. Residential driveways don't need to be as heavy duty. So we're going to be reducing the requirements on residential driveways. Intersection spacings, did some minor stuff there. This was in the last manual. We didn't have much intersection spacing guidelines. And that's why you have something like Olympic Highway North, where you got a lot of driveways and they're offset, they don't line up across the street from each other and all sorts of issues there. That section in the 2023 manual took care of that. In the future, as future developments go, you can't just put it in a driveway wherever you want to. There's certain standards, especially as the classification of the roadway goes up. So local roadways, you can put a lot of driveways in different spots, but when you get up to an arterial, you're getting a little more limited. And that's to allow cars to go to and fro, not to turn at a gas station. A lot of times you'll see an old driveway just right at the pedestrian ADA ramp, right at the corner. You know, there's people sitting there going in and out at a very busy intersection like Wallace Neal and Olympic Highway North. Sometimes you'll see a driveway right at the corner there and very poor that it causes a lot of issue. We're going to be working on private streets. So what we did on that, we already had pavement in there. It's 20 feet of pavement. And then we're going to have the pavement in a tract. And so there'll be 5 feet from on each side of the 20-foot pavement that allows, and that will be the track that will contain the private drive. The house can be built to the track 5 feet away. And so there'll be 10 feet from a wall of a house with building that people sleeping in there or whatever. There'll be 5 feet to the property line, 5 feet for the pavement. So it'll be 10 feet away where people are living to where your neighbors are driving by in these private tracks. We thought that was probably needed here. That's very similar to our corner yard setbacks where you have a house that fronts 2 streets. The side yard setback on that other street's at 10 feet already. So we thought that was a good change. And then we made some infill development standards changes. I'll go over those in a little more detail when we come in with the full manual, because I want to go through to make sure you guys understand some of the changes we made there and why. On-street parking, we're talking about that a little bit. Some of that is how much on-street parking is required. Is council interested in, there's an off-street requirement in our code, Mark, that says, is it 2 off-street, including the garage?
2 off-street, including garage for single family residential, yes.
Yeah, so 1-car garage is full of stuff. You get a person in the driveway. Well, all of a sudden that other car is on the street, and then your kid's car is on the street and all that. So what you find is the on-street parking is great. We want it on local streets, right? That's where we want people to park. But people can move their driveways around and do things to create more on-street parking for birthday parties, Christmas, single family homes that like my garage, I can park a car in there, but I never do because I got an old car I'm working on in there, right? And so anyways, it's important to have off-street standards and on-street standards. And is council interested in us looking at any minimums or examples there for some on-street parking requirements? So if I build 10 houses, a lot of times I'll have to have 2 on-street stalls per house, which would give you 20 on that street, which in most instances works pretty good until you start getting to these 1-car driveway, 1-car garages, a lot of driveways, a lot of houses.
4,500 square foot lots, if they're 45 feet wide.
Yeah.
Then you get a lot of square beds and it starts reducing, build parking straight.
But you and your neighbor can share a curb cut and you sort of drive in like that. They might be a little wider, but instead of 2, you have 1 and those sorts of things to try to get more on-street parking for people.
Would this be more for like development?
Yeah, certainly, that's in subdivisions or short plats or something like that, we have houses. This wouldn't apply to an infill situation necessarily.
No, it'd be brand new subdivisions.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you were interested in some parking minimums. Typically, they just have to move things around and get them to work out a little better. Rather than just saying, I'm doing it this way just because I did it this way, sort of thing.
That's useful.
Okay. tubular markers, somewhat minor, but you go, oh, it's not up on the screen. Those are the things that get on the pavement. And then, you know, the white, if they're on the right, if they're in the center, they're yellow. And the tubular markers, they bend over and then pop back up again. We have a new section for that. Justin from PUD 3 had some revisions to our street lighting standards that were sort of minor, but they made sense to them and how they work with us on the system. So on major roadway structures, they was had require traffic barrier, drop off protection for embankments, drop off protection for if you have a retaining wall that's near a pedestrian area, you can't just walk along the sidewalk and just fall off, right? So that sort of thing. We're putting in a city landscaping general construction notes and irrigation notes. So that's where Olympic Heights is putting in medians. And in those medians is city landscaping. It would apply to projects like that. Or if they're redoing along an arterial roadway, we might have some connect and some other things in there. So anyways, it doesn't happen on a lot of projects, but we thought that was important. And then for pavement markings, we follow WashDOT details. So storm drainage, Brent, go.
So I'm gonna make this a little easier for storm drainage because with our NPDES permit, everything has to be built to that. And so what we're doing for storm drainage is we're going through our comp plan update right now. So that's gonna spark some changes. What we're trying to do with the storm drainage chapter 2 is just pull most of the pertinent information that has to do with building and development out of that and kind of put it in so it's easier to navigate and read. But we do have some specific, you know, pipe types and depths, and conveyance, like a few of these, adding in some new stormwater easement language. So we have the easement that goes all the way down to the connection point where whether it comes off the hill and goes down into Canyon Creek or Shelton Creek. And then cross lot drainages for protecting, you know, downstream property owners. We don't want water to run, and all of this is kind of covered in that one manual, but it's easier if we just pull out the common points that are hit so we can have them.
So I've seen where you have 6 backyards and they all dump into one of your guys' backyard. Well, during the winter, you can't use it. There's so much water running off from their gutters and stuff and whatever. So what we're trying to do is bring that stuff up and make sure that people are taking care of their drainage and, you know, it's going into a conveyance system or through a weep hole in the curb. And we're trying to keep it off of other people's yards if possible.
So water, we have a few, none of these really are high cost to note, and we will have more in, you'll see the chapter, there's a lot of cleanup in, if you look at the red line copy, there's strikeouts and rewords. But this is coming just basically a lot of cleanup that we've had our water department discuss this, look at it, makes sense in the field. Like for instance, we're changing out some water lids because they're hard to get off in certain areas. They just wedge on, get gravel in them, almost impossible to open. So we're moving up to a cast iron lid that has a flapper that you can get in there. If it's sealed all the way around, you can pop it open. And then pipe types, C900 pipes not getting used. We're using HDPE.
Yeah, we use
HDPE and ductile iron.
And ductile iron, yeah.
So HDPE is the stuff that you fuse together. Seamless lines, they just welded on the outside. Had some minor changes to hot taps. That's when we're tapping a water main without having to shut it off. Some verbiage changes on that, and then, thrust blocking, so when the line bends, you have to put a big block of concrete essentially to hold it in place. Because there's a lot of force created in the water mains. And then, the pipe deviations, cause what we're trying to do is control some of the intersections where if pipes break, we want them to break where we can get to them. So we'll shore up some of these pipes. Areas that are hard to get to, so it's like, okay, something does jar that, it's gonna break. Access to it. Sewer,
Question on the lot protection, what are we protecting and who's got to put it in?
the wet one,
Lot protection.
Yeah, so that's corrosive soils. The
Yeah.
soils are pretty corrosive downtown. We're finding that a lot of our cast iron pipes, some of our ductile iron are getting, we lose service life. Ductile iron is typically good for 75 years, and we're finding the cast iron is rotting out after 40 or 50. We start getting leaks in it and that sort of thing. So in terms of protecting those from corrosive soils, they put a thick liner over the pipe. So there's like a tube that the pipe goes into, and they just duct tape it at every joint. So they pull a long trash bag over the pipe and tape it all together. So that is for soils. Okay, now, and that's typically the downtown area. Once you get up on the hills a little bit, the soils aren't corrosive anymore. Now you could have corrosion on, they have been electrifying gas lines at the city. So where they still have steel gas lines, they energize those. It puts out an electromagnetic field. Oh, you know all that,
I know
okay.
about, I'm trying to figure out who's got to do this.
It's a new person putting in the pipe. They have to put in that protection
A water pipe,
on water pipe. Yep.
so that's interesting. So where would they like put their equipment, I mean, this seems.
It's a lot of main in ground.
So I have a
Or
lot of
main
protection
line.
in gas stations, it's on the wall and it's an AC/DC current system and we put anodes in the ground and we test them every 3 years, and is that where we're at? Same thing.
No, you're not gonna see much of that, and I was just getting into that. So if there are instances where you have underground transmission lines with a high electromagnetic field and our water lines running right parallel to them, that water line needs to be protected to maintain our service life. Same thing with the gas lines, that they're charging them to keep that, or to keep corrosion of their gas line. That electromagnetic field affects our water line. Therefore, you'd have to put some anodes and that sort of thing in. Same thing with light rail tracks that are electrified, the trolleys. Any water lines with it crossing under there, you would put cathodic protection on that sort of thing. Those are rare. Those are gonna be really rare occurrences in this community. But you're right, those are a little more costly. But you can compromise the pipe pretty quickly if you have a high electromagnetic field without any at all.
I had a problem up at the highway north at the Texas Road now 76 station. I was going through anodes. 3 years I was there, I replaced the same anode like twice. And they said it's because Cascade Natural Gas was having the anodes up there and they were burning each other
yeah,
out.
but it was one of the reasons
Very
why
nice.
we had to move the water line from. That they just installed at the Olympic Heights.
Yeah.
It was gonna be close to where they were running new power. And so we had them space it out, so we wouldn't have to do that. Right. Sewer, one is just referencing ductile iron pipe, and this is for just the where we're shallow.
It's where
It
you're
is,
shallow.
so
Yep.
if you go under a foot, we wanna, manufacturers are now waffling on it that says, okay, you can bury PVC at a foot, but it's rare that, we would want to do that. So on shallower lines, we want to have ductile iron pipe because it's getting a lot of more of that road pressure on it.
And it also, this same standard applies, so if I'm shooting between two houses with a pipeline. So a lot of times you want to take your sewer and then go down some backyards and then go through an open space area and do that. That needs to be ductile iron because of fence posts and lack of cover, and people damage our PVC pipes. A lot of times you don't, on a sewer pipe, you don't know until it backs up. Something happens to the pipe, then the neighborhood backs up, then you find this fence post, right? So we're trying to harden the pipe. In the road, you're typically not gonna wreck PVC pipe. But when you get off-road is what the intent here of that is.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing on, being able to go deep ground. When you're installing a sewer main that's, fairly deep, we want it to be more bulletproof, so it'll last longer. We don't have to do maintenance on it because it's, they get pretty wide when you're having to dig down that far and replace that line. So we can't have, just the 10-foot easement for that pipe because our trench is gonna be wider than that, getting down.
20 to 30 feet depth in some areas, we have some sewer lines, so to make the safe trench, you're getting well beyond, a width that's practical, if you will, for a lot of easements.
So just so you know, the reason why we're over 20 feet deep is to eliminate pumping facilities. And so we're going with a few deeper pipes here and there to eliminate a brand new lift station or sewer pump station, which is extremely expensive for the developer to put in. And then we got to maintain that forever. So we decided maintaining a deeper pipe is better than maintaining a bunch of pumps over there and wet wells and all that. But we do need better standards. If you go deep with a pipe, it's hard for us to get down 20 feet to dig. It's almost unreachable. You need specialized equipment if you do need to do a repair. So some of it is the line will just go from manhole to manhole, and there's likely no connections to it either. It's just a pure transmission main at that point.
Yeah, and at the manholes, if they are deep, we're making them bigger structures so you can get down in there and have more accessibility. We already covered access roads in chapter 1. That's just so we can get in and maintain these. And it's like Jay said, not every manhole, but as long as we can get to 2 sides or a single side from either way, we can get in there and do most of the sewer backups that we have. We can clear with a jet, root cutters, things like that. And a lot of this is, that's being installed off of this is brand new pipe, so we don't have the old terracotta pipes, concrete pipes going in there that have a lot more maintenance on them. Pressure sewer, so we have a couple of these like force mains that Capitol Hill, we're looking at them putting in a pump station that's gonna have a pressure sewer, so we're updating the standards on that pressure line, how it connects to our system. And then it can go down to, we have a standard for just your lot that sits below, but it's single lot that has its own grinder pump system of going in that. We're just doing a couple modifications in there. The ones that we have right now are pretty good. What is the type of the pumps that we have? But
Well, the one Kenny likes. Yeah.
So our standards call for a certain type of pump system that is pretty robust for a single family residence, that they're not going to have majority of issues, because even though the lateral and the pump station are their own, it's on the homeowner. We're still getting a call. We'll still come out, try and look, say, hey, this is what we think it is because we have experience with it. But they're actually better off if they put in the proper system rather than having to replace pumps and broken lines. Manholes, Ravens coating are on them. It's a standard in a lot of cities now. That's just the inside lining. It's a black coating that goes on, helps protect from INI and corrosiveness going on in the manholes. And yeah, it kind of leads to the same one for the corrosion. There are highly expensive like PVC lined manholes that you can have that are sometimes a standard in certain applications, but the Ravens coat has been proven to work really well. Oh yeah, updated for the slope, updated our charts for sewer pipe main, no longer 6 inches, and then no downstream pipes. So you can't have a flow going from an 8-inch pipe down to a 6-inch pipe, necking it down. It's never good. So just some cleanup on that. And then some water stops on trenching on slopes, so you don't get that. They, like Northcliffe, when they repaired that sewer line going down Northcliffe, they had to put some bentonite dams that keeps the water from just following your pipe all the way down and eroding out, can cause it to sink. And then testing, so when a new sewer line goes in, we have them camera it. They put a little hole off the end of the camera. It has a ball on it that we can see if there's any deflection in the pipe or ponding. So that's no more than a 1/4 inch ponding is allowed.
So that's a belly in the line typically, and on every project, usually you see a few of them. And anyways, usually it's over compaction of the material in the trench that they press the pipe down too hard in some spots. And I've seen ones where the camera goes all the way under and in way more than a 1/4 inch. They dig that back up again as part of the testing procedure, and then they got to re-videotape it again also to make sure, because we don't want flat spots in our sewer lines, right? Because that's where the sewer slows down. You start getting sediments depositing, and then you start forming clogs, obviously.
And then sewer pump stations, we're moving to only allow them through a design modification request. Most places can achieve gravity. Like we said, sometimes the depths vary, but we're okay with it being a little deeper if it's new and bolstered pipe. Because pump stations are ongoing maintenance forever. You know, we take them on. And I've been here enough presenting to you on replacing pumps, you know, the costs involved with that. So not saying they're not allowed outright, but you need to design or come to us and we'll work through a design, and we kind of have that in the new appendix that's going in. And then just a general note on the deviation of when you're connecting the pipes. It's standard plumbing. I mean, it's just making sure that they get the pipes sealed into all the way instead of leaving them out where there's a lip. And then
So on the sewer pump station force main standards, we're taking those out of the main sewer chapter and putting those in an appendix. And the guidelines are a lot clearer in there now to you know, how this thing gets designed and built. And we're trying to get them to a point where they're all standardized. So when the folks show up, it's the same, smaller, larger, that's the same type of configuration for our people. Because a lot of these, it's 2 a.m., right? And you might know the station because you visited during the weekdays and whatever, but at night, our people need to know, you know, what are they getting into? And then we can have a little more off the shelf type of pumps too, that as long as we're using the same pumps and controllers and that sort of thing, when we need to go out there and put something in, we already have one that we can, it's hot swappable. And that way a pump isn't down for a week or two on end. So these pump stations always have a backup pump laying there in case the main one fails, and they actually alternate between who's backing up. So you don't wear one out sooner. But if you do lose one pump, you've lost your backup. And then if you lose that second pump, you don't have any pumping. And so anyways, it's important that we standardize things and try to get more stuff at the shop that we can, if we see a pump went out, we can just go put a new one right back in again.
Yeah, and that's like on the shelf for some of ours, like a lot of our pump stations don't have on the shelf pumps, but they have a built-in spare pump. So like there's 3 pumps at Nealon, but one is considered a backup and they just built it into not having it sitting on the shelf, because when you have them sitting on the shelf, you're just not running it and your warranty goes away on it. So you could put it in and it work a day and you don't have it under warranty anymore. So
Yeah, we have a 2-year warranty from the contractors on these stations. So we need to get all the glitches out and then we take ownership of it after that. So again, we want a little bit better parts, that sort of thing.
for reclaimed water, it pretty much mirrors the regular water chapter. It just reaffirms that no cross connections can be made from the potable to the non-potable water. As you can see, most of these are all just mirrors. And then we do have some, obviously on hydrants and valving, things like that. We have purple markers that say this is not for drinking, this is a reclaimed water source. And then and I do want to caveat this with, this is in draft form. You do have the abilities to see kind of like, especially the sewer pump station checked, and all of that was in there.
It's good.
It's gonna be just a bunch of red.
You'll see example of strikeout and underline.
Yeah.
Representing the changes within the package. We've got a few more hours. We can go through this.
Yeah. But and the purpose that we wanted to bring this forward to is to get it on your attention. Get your thoughts on it too, because this is in draft form, so it's a living document anyway. We changed this, as needed in minimals. You could have to change a word, and so that's where Jay's saying that if we're changing a word or two, we're just gonna go to the market and say, hey, can we get these if there's no cost involved? But with we'd like to get your input, if any, that you maybe have brought from a citizen that you have for yourself, that you're like, hey, we have this in here, before we bring in a final version.
When they call up those questions, I know your number. But my only comment would be, does this add any significant amount of money to a builder, not necessarily a big builder, but like a here and there lot kind of guy? You got a lot down here on vacant lot of 3rd Street, and you want to build a house. Is this going to add a significant amount of money to that project? Or
No, for sewer, it's actually, for that instance, it's probably gonna lessen it a little bit, like the driveways, the residential driveways, where like you don't need to build them to commercial. So they're lowering that. The one thing in sewer that could be a little bit more costly is the Ravens coating on manholes, but those are going in developments. Most of the time you're tying into an existing sewer. Sometimes there's already even a lateral there, so it's not affecting.
yeah, single builder
you know,
would be putting in manholes, I hope not.
Not typically. I mean, unless they're just building a couple houses, they have to do a main extension to it. And there's potential.
And a lot of the time at those ones, they're extending it 200 feet. We don't need a manhole. We come up with a lamp hole. So it's the next person that, when they get to 300, is when we're kicking in some of those footages.
So most likely in the transportation element or infill lots, if there's anything
Where
of significance there, that I think that's probably what's going to
Yeah.
affect most of the 1-2 off builders that we've experienced is really around frontage improvement. Right.
mhm. And some of the changes like that we're actually getting in, is on the corner lot. We're not measuring the whole, because if your neighbors don't have a sidewalk, and you're on a corner and then it's built out on the, it's like, it's not gonna do much good to build that sidewalk either, so. But it was getting over our footage of the 150 feet, so we're only measuring one side. So
Yeah,
it's,
but
it's
it wasn't
taking that
really
away.
Clear in there, the 150 feet, whether it was on one frontages or the entire frontage of your property on two streets.
Cause you could have a 60 foot lot, cause they're corner lots, they have to be 6,000 square feet. A 60 foot by 100 and it puts you over by 10, so then you're not considered infill. So we're taking that out and measuring it on just one side.
Cities. Yeah, do did we ever get that, in lieu of, or,
Yeah, and that's what we're moving, instead of you paving.
Yeah.
On a gravel road, it's just paving in lieu of fee, so we can use it.
So everybody is, the cost to develop that lot is similar for everybody. We just relax the standards and we have in the master fee schedule, have the fee in lieu for paving, sidewalks, that sort of thing. So you pay this fee, it goes into the street fund. We use it on other sidewalks and street paving projects and that sort of thing. So there is equity there to somebody doing a subdivision where they're building the roads and paving and doing all that. And then if you're infill, you're still paying for the curb that you didn't put in the master fee schedule. So everybody per lot is paying about the same amount of money. It's just, if I have one lot and I gotta hire an engineer to design my street and my sidewalk and all those things, it gets really expensive. Whereas if you have 20 lots, because you're a new development, you've spread that out over a bunch more lots. So I think the reaction's been pretty positive so far to the infill development matrix. It's a little complicated. We're trying to make it easier. We have a new diagram in there too. Yeah, that's right there is the diagram to help a little bit. Because it can get a little confusing on are you an infill or not an infill? Who's developed? What's the definition of development? All that. And we got through most of that in 2023. But 3 years later, we, found, people have a lot of questions and that sort of thing. So we tried to make it a little clearer.
There's a lot of different lots in our community too, from 3,000 square foot lots to large parcels with varying degrees of development around them or no development. So trying to pigeonhole some of these development standards, that meet all of those needs with every potential development.
Okay.
Possibility is tough. You have to be a little bit flexible, or you have to maintain these standards and keep updating them.
All right.
Okay.
So is that everything you have for us then?
That is.
Okay, great. I guess we're moving on to new items. Does the council have any new items for discussion? Riveting so far. You have.
Mayor, I do, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I want to update the council on Central Mason Fire board meeting last week. The board gave direction to their staff to move forward with the levy lid lift in August. That levy lid lift would increase their levy rate from, let me make sure I'm quoting it correctly. From $1.19 and a lot of other numbers essentially. So, 1.1951603 right now is their levy rate in their district. To a 2027 levy rate of $1.48. So, that's, 29 cents or so. That equates to almost $361,000 to the city of Shelton. Per the ILA, the city pays Central Mason and Fire the levy rate that they collect within their district outside the city limits from our general fund for those services. So our contribution to them based on that levy lid lift passing, that increase in 2027 is estimated to be $360,729.73. That ballot measure also includes a 4% increase for the 5 subsequent years from 28 through 32. And so that varies from 74,000, almost 75, 74,972 in 2028 up to $87,707 in 2032.
We can't win for losing, can we?
Yeah, they did indicate that if it did not pass on the August ballot, they would be inclined to run it again in November of this year. So, it's an issue that at hand for us. It's $360,000 if it passes upfront out of our general fund. They did mention their strategic plan and annexation within that strategic plan, which I made a comment to the board that I appreciated it's still within their strategic plan, and that's an issue that should be addressed in the future because that gives our constituency, the constituency in the city of Shelton, the opportunity to vote on those measures with that annexation. If that annexation did occur, then that levy, right, that levy in Central Mason would be levied within the city of Shelton directly on the property owners of the city of Shelton, wouldn't be passed through the city's general fund.
Is it 300 a year? Or is it 300, then you said 74, 75?
In addition,
In
so it's
addition,
360, 729 in 2027. It's an additional 74,972.70 in 2028 on top of that.
On top of it.
Yep, so they levied $1.48 and then they add 4% onto that each year.
So 3 years, we're gonna get extra $1 million we got to find.
At the end of 2032, the estimate is 766,806.
So it's 3,
Yeah,
not 3 plus 75 plus, okay, I get it. It's the first year's 366.
and then you add 4% on each year.
Right.
And, but with any building or development within the city of Shelton, that would be added on, right? That levy rate would be added on to this without an additional collection in the city of Shelton. You know what I mean? If Olympic Heights built 200 houses, we would be paying the city would be paying $1.48 per thousand to Central Mason Fire, collecting the property tax levy we collect. Now, it wouldn't be, right? You know what I'm saying?
I got it. Where are we gonna find the money?
Can we run a concurrent ballot measure?
Yeah.
Just basically saying,
Yeah,
they're trying to do this, we wanna increase our fees so that we can. Other than that, we have to lay people off.
you know, we have a decent fund balance. We did budget $1.1 million this year of that fund balance. It doesn't, last year, I don't want to say is anomaly, our revenues was higher than we budgeted, our expenditures were below what we budgeted, we came out with favorable fund balance. I'm coming to you in the next meeting with another budget amendment to add 2 FTEs we didn't budget in 26, so there's 96,000 or so for 2026, because I really believe we need the support in some departments. The 1.1 million, not knowing what the economy is going to do, how revenue is going to last. I don't have a crystal ball here, but what we are projecting is eating into that fund balance further as we move through the coming years. So to answer your question, I looked at a couple opportunities or options. Yes, a levy lid lift ourselves specifically for, to address Central Mason's levy lid lift is a possibility. We discussed last November, and Councilmember Gilmore brought it up last week about the TBD increase. We are currently contributing $200,000 from the general fund to the street fund. So that could, if the TBD was increased, that could offset that $200,000 back to the general fund to help offset again the increased cost to Central Mason Fire, or there's the potential with the public safety sales tax, which again would potentially offset general fund contributions to public safety, including police, courts, and therefore provide some relief for the contribution to Central Mason and Fire. So I believe right now there's essentially 3 options, if you will. Which one of those are most appropriate? Levy lid lift would have to go out to a ballot measure. The TBD and the public safety sales tax could be done councilmatically, or conversely could be done to a ballot measure as well.
So if we don't do our own levy lift for the city, we're relying on Central Mason to annex us and then we pay through the general fund? It's-
So if it's annexed, then Central Mason would levy their levy rate within the city of Shelton. It wouldn't come through our general fund. We'd find general fund relief. But at that point, what the council would have to decide is what the levy rate in the city would be. Because, for example, if it's 2026 and their levy lid lift passes, they will levy $1.48 per thousand, right? So if then that annexation takes place, they would levy that $1.48 within the city of Shelton. And if we left our levy rate as such, the residents of the city of Shelton would be paying an additional $1.48 per thousand to cover fire service. So we, the council, city would have to decide what levy rate would be imposed on the city of Shelton to provide some relief, because the voters of the city of Shelton would be voting on that annexation. And my gut is that they wouldn't approve a $1.48 increase if that's already being paid out of the general, but they don't want to see some. What that looks like, we'd have to do some work there, and that's why the annexation discussion is really important to start really soon. But the Central Mason believes it's important to get that levy lid lift on the ballot this year so they can address some of their funding deficiencies in the near term.
So explain the levy lid lifts to me. So if fire department does one and we were to do one, then we're really adding quite a bit of property taxes, correct? I mean,
The city's levy lid lift would only apply in the city. The Central Masons in this year
Into
would only
property
apply to their district outside the city.
So ours would match theirs.
No, because our levy rates aren't the same.
Oh.
Right? You would set the levy rate essentially at the rate you would want to collect. What Central Mesa is saying, we're gonna raise ours from 119 to 148 because that's our deficiency. That increases their collection by 1.7 million in 2027. And then under a 6-year per RCW, you can do an adjustment of your levy rate and have a 6-year increment. You can do a one-time reset, so it actually, or a 6-year reset. So they'll reset, there's the 140, I'm sorry if this is confusing. They're gonna reset, there's the 148. And then the 4% each year will be added on to that. After the 6th year, after 2032, that 1% statutory limit will apply to that existing rate. So they've essentially increased that rate to. It's on their spreadsheet. Didn't even look at that. Yeah, it's not included on there. That would be your starting point again. It was kind of reset your levy rate, because as property values increase, the levy rate goes down. If the city of Shelton was considering that, you can consider different options. You can go to like I said, like a 6-year, you could adjust your levy rate to whatever you thought that was, 50 cents per thousand or something. And then that would reset our levy rate. So the 1% statutory limit would apply at that point. Or you can set an inflationary factor over those 6 years that would because the voters approved it, it could go over that 1% statutory limit. Right? Because that's what requires the city, the council to approve a levy rate above 1% annually is a vote of the public.
I don't know how much more people can take on the property taxes. I'd rather do a sales tax increase, the TBD, and to offset the increase from the fire department. I don't want to add anything. People thought to that. Oh my gosh. Oh, my property taxes are more than my first house payment was. I know it's been a few years, but.
What were you gonna say, Tom?
Oh, my first thought on it is the reason I like the property tax, which I don't like property tax. I agree with you there, but because that's what they're doing and we can send it to the voters. The voters have the opportunity to say, we don't want to pay for this fire protection. And right now, our ILA makes us pay more for fire protection than people in the county are paying, because we're paying the normal rate and we're paying for the fire building, we're paying part for fire engines and all those things. And if our voters say no, then we might be in a better negotiating position to say, hey, yeah, we'll pay you the rate, but we can't keep doing this. Or we need to consider what we're already paying. Or if voters approve it, we can continue with the ILA. We've shown we're willing to pay their rates in an annexation. We're already there, we're already doing it. And then obviously we'll cut it back down if they do annex us, but I feel like we're in a better negotiating situation. At $360,000 per year, an increase in the first year, and it goes up, but that's about $100,000 for a mean value house in the county, in the city. So it's about $10 a month. It's not nothing. Mortgage payments are huge. I feel that, but it's definitely something people can consider versus what it'll actually do to the service level potentially in the city, especially in the out years when we're talking $500,000-$600,000. So I think it's about asking what the voters are willing to do and using that as a bargaining chip if we have to. I don't know. I mean, I really wanted to put the TBD on the ballot. I feel weird putting both of those things next to each other. It's really hard to take that to the voters.
Right.
But I also would rather have something to talk about with the fire department than just pay if it passes. And face the consequences.
Appreciate your input there.
I support Councilmember Gilmore that I wanted to do the TBD councilmatically. And I think we should still do that and then put this to the voters, but that's my point of view. I think we need to have the flexibility in this economy to make our own decisions. And taxes are difficult for people to like or understand, but if we also like services, and we're gonna have to understand that our 1% rate of increase is not gonna keep up with inflation for forever. So we have to, at some point, come to grips with cutting more services or doing a minuscule increase in our tax base. And then we can't rely on continued growth forever to fill in the gaps, and we can't rely on understaffing ourselves to fill in our budget gaps. So I like Councilor Gilmore's idea about giving us the leverage. And I also like the idea of us passing the TBD councilmatically, but that's for something to think about.
Mayor, we're at 7:58 per my laptop. Do you want to extend it all to have further discussion
If
or?
we need further discussion, I think we're about there. Are we about there?
I said my piece.
George, do you have?
Yeah,
I don't believe so.
Yeah, so how about?
No, I wouldn't mind, 10 more minutes if you want, 5 or so.
I move to extend the meeting till 8:10.
Second.
All right. Okay.
Motion is second. Or
We have a motion and a second to, okay.
I mean, yeah.
So I guess I've really heard one proposal, right? If I'm trying to capture everything right from Councilmember Gilmore, which is considering a ballot measure with the levy lid lift at what would be equivalent to the Central Mason implications of their levy lid lift. Is that
That's what's in my head, is
Okay.
basically just exactly the impact of
just
this.
follow?
So we're trying to earn another $306,000.
To simplify it, offset that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, I apologize.
You're good.
To offset the implications of Central Mason's levy lid lift with a levy lid lift in the city of Shelton that would just basically dollar for dollar.
So they're adding, if they pass, they're adding property taxes, and then if we do it, we're adding more property taxes, or we're not.
It would increase the levy rate in the city of Shelton. Their levy rate would not increase in the city of Shelton.
Thoughts, George?
I like, on the ballot, sounds good.
I hate the idea of raising taxes. I see the need. I really think we should put it on the ballot.
I'm also the person who wants, when it comes to raising taxes, I want the people to be able to make those decisions. They've, you know, they voted for schools recently. They showed their hand there. So, you know, it's really up to them what their priorities are, and they'll show us there. And if, you know, if we have to make adjustments after that vote, then definitely, but I want to give our community their voice first.
And is the August ballot measure the appropriate?
You just wanna try and match whatever the fire department's doing.
They, so May 1st is the deadline to submit the resolution to the auditor's office. So we would have 2 more meetings to get that done. The 2 April meetings to get that on the August 4th election date. We'd have to put some ballot language together, offer opportunity for a pro and con message publicly, so we could get that. I think certainly utilizing the information Central Mason is utilizing, right, to advertise their ballot, it would be appropriate in indicating why this is coming forward. So it'll take some coordination between them, which I think they understand and would be more than willing to provide that. Okay.
Could we get a physical impact statement of both passing, one passing, and none of them passing? And then if there's a best combo, what kind of messaging can we put out to make sure that Shelton residents come out on the good end of this?
Yeah, what we'll need to do is calc exactly what kind of levy rate would be applied in the city of Shelton to match, you know, the implications from Central Mason. So we will certainly be able to provide that, and we have to provide that for the levy language. So which is, if there is a percentage increase after the first year, that has to be in the ballot language and describe that.
Could we have a proposal or a provision in there that we don't enforce our levy if Central Masons passes?
Or doesn't.
Or does it?
It doesn't pass, yeah.
Pass. I would, boy, I'd have to check with legal and see what, I'd have to check with legal and see what the implications are. I would imagine if there's something in August, we could take the council can take some action. Let me double check. I've never been asked that before, how we
Because
refuse a.
If we're doing this more for protecting ourselves, then we don't want to double tax, right? So. I don't know.
Is,
So,
You would essentially be getting the money to fund the shortcomings of the
Yeah.
other projects too, so you have the voters saying that.
It's okay. Okay.
so it's an if so type of situation.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess the caveat is if they're running it again in November, let's take a crazy scenario here.
Yeah.
The city levy lid passes in August, Central Masons fails in August. And they run it again in November, certainly we'd have to wait. We could find out what that meant, you know, if it failed twice, but we'd have to wait until if they did truly run that again in November before the council would take action, I would assume.
Right.
Okay. Just
Because we're
making
trying to be
sure that-
cooperative, but we have to protect ourselves, is I think that's Tom's point of view.
I think that's what I heard.
if it passes, let's say you pass in November, does it go in effect for the January 1 of the next year?
It does, yes.
The same with August.
Correct,
So we can run this in November.
correct. Yeah,
Then we'll know if their first ballot passed or if they're going to run it again, and we don't have to quite sit here with a tax that we own that we might not.
and try to. That's a good point.
Will we have time?
Yes, absolutely.
Put it in by August? When's the due date for November?
August 4th.
August 4th.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's right.
We'll
Thank you.
We'll be, right, we'll be in the middle of the budget, and the ballot, the election on August
Right.
4th is the day that our resolution would be due to the county
Right.
auditor.
Perfect.
So we'd
Right.
have to do it in advance of the November, of the August election results for November. it's a little bit of confusion.
So everyone at home, adulting is hard, you know, so we're making good decisions for you, you know, anyway.
Part of our asking for a lift lift and the city asking for lift lift for the same thing. We're gonna have to explain that extremely well.
Well, it wouldn't be on the same
They
ballot.
don't get the same. No, you don't have the same.
Yeah.
Cities.
Central Masons would be in their
Right.
district only, it wouldn't be
Right.
on the city's
They
ballot.
look different.
So, but I imagine there's the ability to, and I'll research that, how you can potentially pull that off the ballot, you know, within a day. Or hopefully the ballots aren't printed at that point, or what kind of flexibility that we have, around that time. And, what I do need to do is prepare for this for the April 7th meeting.
Okay. You've got.
Regardless, yeah, exactly. Like I said, we have a few more hours here.
All
Okay,
right.
sounds like I've got,
Oh, I just had a question. Do you still want briefings this week since we don't meet next week?
I don't know if I need to readjust them because the fifth Tuesday always kind of throws off those briefings.
It's on my calendar. I just. know
Is it on the
it's-
right date?
Yeah, they're on Thursday and Friday this week.
It's on the right,
But I don't know if you wanted to have them still since we don't have a meeting next week.
but they're not on next week, correct?
Oh,
They're on this week.
Oh,
That's what I'm
oh,
saying.
oh.
That's what I'm saying. Usually the fifth Tuesday messes things up. So, and I haven't gone back. I apologize. If they're on the calendars now, and we want to leave those in place. I'm happy to continue with those or move them to the following week if I have booked out.
Yeah, they're not on the following third or the 10th.
Right, yeah, so.
So do we want briefings this week?
Sort of pleasure of the council.
I'm good.
We can skip to next week.
Keep it going.
No, get Thursday and Friday off.
We'll push it to next.
Okay.
I'll
We'll
update.
see you on
That's why
Saturday.
Yeah,
Exactly.
oh, good point, great point.
Saturday, yeah, we'll go with
That's right.
that.
Oh, yeah, we can brief on Saturday.
Looking
There you
forward to
go.
that.
Okay, so
Let's hear you do it.
is that everything? Are we good? All right, all right. So this study session is adjourned at 8:08.
Well, see you all at Bowles tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely be there. Thank you very much.